Imagine that within you there is a temple, a sacred place where your purpose is built, where the highest part of you resides, your vision, your dreams, your inner strength. But that temple is not alone. Outside, every day, there are forces trying to tear it down. One of the most dangerous ones disguises itself as pleasure, and it's called lust. It doesn't come in shouting. It whispers. It promises relief, rest, quick satisfaction. But what it truly seeks is to extinguish the fire you are trying to ignite. Because if that fire grows, you change. And if you change, you become free. And that is what this force fears the most, that you become the master of yourself. When you choose to live with a higher purpose, you can't live the same way anymore. You can't give in to everything that calls you. You can't give your energy away to impulses that only leave you empty. Lust is not just another desire. It is a test, one that comes precisely when you're growing, when you're taking shape, when you're beginning to see your true potential. The question is direct. Are you going to allow a fleeting desire to destroy the work of a lifetime? This video is for those in that internal struggle, for those who feel that something inside them wants more, but who also know how hard it is to stay grounded. We're going to talk about that war, not from a place of judgment, but from understanding. I'm going to give you 8 Stoic principles that you can not only understand, but practice, because the fight against lust isn't won in a day. It's won every time you choose to build instead of surrender. 1. Your mind is the king. Your impulses are subjects. If your life were an empire, your mind would be the throne, and everything else, your emotions, your desires, your impulses, would be the subjects. Some useful, others treacherous. The problem is that many, without realizing it, have brought the king to his knees before the whims of his servants. They have let impulse rule, let desire dictate the course, let urgency decide what to do. But if impulse governs, the empire falls. Stoicism makes it clear. You are not what you feel. You are what you decide to do with what you feel. Feeling desire does not make you a slave. What enslaves you is surrendering to it without questioning it. What chains you is thinking that because you feel something, you must act accordingly. And no, you are not an animal guided only by instinct. You have reason. You have consciousness. You have the ability to observe your desire and not move. That is power. That is freedom. When the Stoic Epictetus spoke of freedom, he did not mean doing what you want when you want. He meant having dominion over yourself, that your will does not tremble under the pressure of an impulse, that you can feel the desire with all its intensity and still say, "Not now, not like this, not in this way." Lust is not the enemy. The real enemy is the internal disorder you allow when you do not give your mind the place it deserves. Lust, in its crudest form, is just misdirected energy. It is fire that does not build, but burns. And if you do not have a firm mind in command, that fire is going to ravage your focus, your time, your habits, your energy, and even your dignity. You have to start looking at your desires for what they are. Subjects. Some come to help you, others to test you, but none rule. None are above the king. You decide whether to give them an order or to banish them. Every time an impulse appears, you have an opportunity. You can give in and feel empty afterwards, or you can resist and strengthen yourself. And no, it's not about repressing or pretending you don't feel anything. It's about governing, about leading yourself, about understanding that a mind that commands its impulses is a mind that can build whatever it wants. It can write, create, serve, love, advance. But a mind governed by its desires lives trapped in an endless cycle of pleasure and guilt, euphoria and emptiness, impulse and regret. So ask yourself with brutal honesty, who is governing your empire? Your conscience or your impulses? Your long-term vision or the urgency to feel something now? Every day is a training field. Every decision, a battle. And you don't need to win them all to become someone strong, but you do have to start winning the important ones. You have to reclaim the throne. And you don't do it with pretty phrases or empty promises. You do it with concrete actions. Getting up when you don't want to, saying no when everything in you wants to say yes, building when it would be easier to distract yourself. That is leadership. That is self-mastery. That is living like a king in your own internal world. Because in the end, either you govern your mind or your impulses govern you. And a king who does not rule ends up being a slave. 2. Turn your energy into creative fire, not into ashes of fleeting pleasure. Within you, there is fire. I'm not referring to something symbolic. I'm talking about real energy, vital, raw, the kind that ignites when you have desire, passion, hunger for something. The problem is not that fire. The problem is what you do with it, because you can use it to build something eternal, or to consume it in seconds and end up surrounded by ashes. Misunderstood lust is a constant leak of that fire. It makes you believe that you need to release it quickly, that if you don't let it out now, you explode. But you don't explode. You're letting yourself be drained. Every time you give in to immediate pleasure without control, you're losing energy that you could have used for something bigger, to create, to move forward, to leave a mark. Marcus Aurelius put it this way: do you have the power to reason? Then why do you let desire rule over you? Sexual energy, that intense impulse that shakes you from within, is not your enemy. It's a tool, a fuel. But if you don't know how to handle it, if you don't learn how to channel it, it becomes a chain, a cycle of empty search that never fills, like pouring gasoline into a hole. The key is to change direction, not to extinguish the fire, but to redirect it. Do you feel desire? Use it, but not to give in, but to focus, to train harder, to write with more intensity, to work with more discipline, to build the body, the mind, and the life you know you are called to have. That fire has to fuel your purpose, not destroy it. The Stoics talked a lot about the transmutation of desire, not in mystical terms, but practical ones. They understood that you couldn't eliminate an impulse, but you could transform it. If you had lust, they didn't tell you, forbid everything and suffer in silence. They told you, redirect that force towards virtue. And virtue is action. It's focus. It's intention. It's living according to your principles, not your whims. Do you want to know why many achieve nothing? Because every time they have energy, they spend it on seeking pleasure. And easy pleasure leaves nothing. It relieves you for a while, yes, but then it leaves you empty. It distracts you from the path. It makes you lose hours, days, even years chasing something that never fills. And when you finally wake up, it's too late. Because the fire went out. You turned it into ashes. Now listen to this carefully. If you manage to save that energy, if instead of draining it, you hold it, you become stronger, more creative, clearer. Your mind starts to work at another level. Your discipline sharpens. Your vision becomes more real. Because the fire that doesn't escape burns from within. And that internal fire is what moves those who build great things, those who transform the world, those who live with purpose. Yes, it's hard. You're going to feel uncomfortable. Your body will ask for relief. Your mind will make up excuses. But every time you choose not to give in, you're not losing anything. You're investing. You're training your character. You're turning desire into power. Ask yourself this with brutal honesty. What are you doing with your energy? Are you feeding a life worth living? Or are you wasting your fire on pleasures that leave no trace? If you want to create something real, a work, a business, a family, a mission, you need energy. And that energy doesn't come from empty motivations. It comes from the fire you choose not to waste. It comes from the desire you choose to transform. It comes from telling yourself, my purpose is bigger than my impulse. Because at the end of the day, we all feel the same. The difference is in what we do with it. Some turn the fire into smoke and disappear. Others turn it into light and mark the way. 3. Discipline is your shield and your sword. When you face your impulses, good intentions are not enough. Wanting to change is not enough. Desire does not stop because you have dreams. Impulse does not turn off just because you understand that it harms you. To resist, to move forward, to build something great, you need a concrete, practical, sharp tool. And that tool is called discipline. Discipline is the shield that protects you from the daily attack of desire. It is the barrier between you and your impulses. But it is also your sword, the tool with which you cut laziness, self-sabotage, the constant need for gratification. It is what allows you to go from saying you want something to proving it with actions. The Stoics did not talk about discipline as if it were a punishment. They saw it as an act of power. For them, he who does not master himself cannot aspire to master anything else. Epictetus put it bluntly, no one is free who is not master of himself. And being master of yourself does not mean not feeling. It means that even though you feel, you choose what is right. But beware. Discipline does not appear by magic. It is not an emotion. It is a decision. One that you make every day, even when you don't feel like it, especially when you don't feel like it. Because it's easy to have self-control when everything is calm. The hard part is holding on when desire screams, when temptation appears, just when you're weak, tired, or frustrated. And that's where many fall, because they expect to have strength when the difficult moment comes. But strength is not improvised. It is trained. Discipline is forged in routine, in what you do every day, in the small acts of resistance that seem insignificant, but that are building or destroying you. Do you know why so many fail when they try to overcome lust or any other destructive impulse? Because they have no structure, they have no order, they have no system to hold them up when their mind wants to give up. Discipline is that, the system. It's getting up at the same time. It's training even when you're tired. It's blocking distractions. It's saying no firmly and then continuing. It's not pretty. It's not comfortable. It's not exciting. But it works. And more than working, it transforms. Because every act of discipline not only takes you away from chaos, it also brings you closer to the kind of person you want to be. There is no greatness without sacrifice. There is no growth without control. And control comes from constant practice, from uncomfortable decisions, from the ability to hold on when everything in you wants to let go. Discipline, when it becomes part of you, turns into armor. You no longer have to think all the time about resisting, because you already do. Your body and your mind align. You no longer decide whether you do or don't do things. You just do them. And that is freedom. not having to fight every day with your impulses because your life is already built on solid habits. But be careful. Do not confuse discipline with perfection. You are going to fail. You are going to fall. You are going to have days where you lose the battle. And that's okay, because real discipline is not measured by how many times you don't fall, but by how many times you get up without hesitation. By how many times, even defeated, you pick up your sword again. Ask yourself this question and answer it without lying. Is your life sustained by discipline or by the emotion of the moment? Do you get up when it's time or when you feel like it? Do you do what's right or what's easy? The difference between those who move forward and those who stagnate is not in talent nor in luck. It's in discipline, in the ability to do what needs to be done, even when there are no applause, even when no one sees you, even when everything inside you asks for rest. Because in the end, the path to a higher purpose is not conquered with motivation. It is conquered with discipline. It's your shield when temptation strikes. It's your sword when you need to move forward. And if you learn to wield it, there is no impulse that can defeat you. 4. Desire is a visitor. Do not let it become your master. Desire knocks on the door, sometimes softly, sometimes forcefully, but it always comes back. It is not an enemy that you can eliminate. It is a visitor, and like every visitor, it can come in, stay for a moment, and then leave. The problem starts when you give it the keys to the house, when you let it settle in, make decisions, move the furniture, dominate your routines, and alter your way of living. Desire, especially poorly managed sexual desire, has an impressive ability to disguise itself as a necessity. It makes you believe that you cannot continue without satisfying it. It deceives you. It makes you feel that if you do not act, you are repressing yourself. But that is not repression. It is dominance. To repress is to hide. To dominate is to recognize it, face it head-on, and decide not to act. And that is the key, to recognize it for what it is. A visit, not an order, not an obligation, not an absolute truth, just another impulse that comes and goes. When you understand this, you change your relationship with desire. You stop fighting it as if it were an impossible monster and start managing it as another energy that needs direction. Most people fall because they identify with what they feel. They believe that if they desire something, then they must have it. That if something feels urgent, then it must be satisfied. But not everything you desire is good for you. Not everything that feels good builds you up. There are desires that come to test you, not to guide you. And when you do not set boundaries, when you allow that visitor to stay too long, it starts to change you. It shapes your way of thinking. It makes you weaker with each repetition. It turns you into someone who lives in anticipation of the next stimulus, the next escape, the next relief. Without realizing it, you are no longer deciding. You are reacting. That is the real danger. Not desire itself, but letting it become the one in charge. Because when desire becomes the master, you stop being you. You lose clarity. You stop thinking long-term. You stop building. You start spinning in circles, chasing pleasure as if your life depended on it. And when you get it, it goes away quickly, as it came, and you remain the same, or worse. That is why it is so important to learn to observe without acting, to feel without moving, to let the impulse come and go without turning it into a command. This does not make you weak, it makes you free. Because the one who needs to act every time they feel something is not free. They are a prisoner of their impulses. But the one who can feel desire, accept it, and let it go, has a power that few know. And yes, this is trained. It is not achieved in a day. Every time you feel that impulse and do not give in, you are regaining control. You are reminding your mind who is in charge. You are teaching your body that you do not live by what you feel, but by what you choose. And every small victory adds up. Every resistance strengthens. But there is more. When desire does not control you, you become clearer, more focused. You start to see things from another perspective. You are not scattered. You are not looking for escapes. You are present. And from there, you can create, decide, truly love. Because you are no longer using people or experiences as a way to calm your anxiety. You no longer need to fill voids. You are choosing from awareness. So engrave this in your mind. Desire is not a problem if you know who you are. The problem is forgetting that you are the master of the house, that you decide who comes in, how long they stay, and what place they occupy. If you let desire become your master, you will gradually lose control of your life. But if you see it for what it is, a visitor, then you can maintain power. And power on this path is not to dominate others. It is to dominate yourself. It is not to fear desire, but also not to obey it. It is to have the strength to say, yes, I feel it, but I do not need it. 5. Be the architect of your destiny, not the slave to your impulses. Your life is not an accident. It's not a coincidence, nor something that just happens to you. Your life is a construction. Each decision you make is a brick. Each habit, a structure. Every time you choose to act or not to act, you're designing the place where you're going to live tomorrow. The question is, who's building? You or your impulses? There's a harsh truth that many don't want to face. If you don't design your life with intention, others will do it for you. Your impulses, your traumas, your voids, your weaknesses. They will all build walls if you don't take control. And the problem is that these walls, although comfortable at first, become a prison. Impulse wants speed, not direction. It wants gratification, not purpose. It wants comfort, not evolution. And if you let it draw the blueprint of your life, you'll end up in a place where you don't want to be. Alone, empty, frustrated, wondering at what point you lost your way. But it wasn't in a single day. It was brick by brick, decision after decision, yielding, postponing, avoiding. That's why you have to see yourself as an architect, someone who knows what they want to build, who has a clear vision, even if everything isn't ready yet. Someone who thinks long-term, even when everything screams for immediate pleasure. The architect doesn't build according to the weather of the day or their emotions. They build according to a blueprint. And that blueprint is your purpose. The difference between an architect and a slave is that the former decides, the latter only reacts. The former acts with intention. The latter is moved like a leaf in the wind, and the wind of desire is strong, subtle, persistent. That's why you need to stand firm. Because if not, any impulse can knock down your foundations. Maybe at the moment, it doesn't seem like a big deal. A click, an excuse, a just this once. But each uncontrolled act leaves a crack, and those cracks accumulate. And when you realize it, you're not building, you're surviving, plugging holes, putting out fires, struggling with the frustration of living in a structure you didn't choose. So, what does it mean to be an architect? It means deciding every day, even if it hurts. It means building solid habits. It means setting boundaries, establishing internal rules, knowing how to say no to yourself, not because you can't, but because you don't need to. It means projecting yourself into the future and acting based on that, not on your momentary desire. But it also means taking responsibility. Stop blaming others, the past, the circumstances. The architect doesn't complain about the terrain. They design based on it. And you have what you have: your story, your wounds, your weaknesses. But you also have something more valuable: the ability to choose, to redesign, to start building for real. Real freedom is not in doing what you want when you want. It's in creating a life so solid, so consistent with you, that you don't need to run away from it, looking for momentary escapes. Because yes, that's what lust often does. It promises you an escape, a relief, a quick break. But it doesn't tell you that afterwards, you're going to have to return to the same weak structure, only now with less strength. So look at yourself honestly. Are you designing your life, or are you letting impulses design you? Are you building something solid, or are you just decorating a prison with momentary pleasures? Because in the end, being an architect is not easy. It requires vision. It requires resilience. It requires quiet work. But it also gives you something that no impulse can give you: pride. Pride in knowing that you're forging something real, that you're not at the mercy of what you feel, but you're choosing who you want to be. And you're building it step by step. You decide, do you become the architect of your destiny, or do you continue being a slave to what only seeks to distract you? 6. Do not feed your enemy. It doesn't take a great battle to fall. Sometimes a small concession is enough, an excuse, just a little bit. Because the most dangerous enemy is not the one who attacks head-on. It's the one who gets in because you let him in. The darkest things don't always come with violence. Sometimes they come with seduction, with disguises. And if you're not careful, you end up feeding it with your own actions. This enemy strengthens with every unnecessary click, with every wasted minute, with every time you choose immediate pleasure over long-term construction. Each of these acts is a spoonful of food you give it, and the more you feed it, the stronger it becomes, more demanding, more present, until it dominates you. Lust doesn't take over you all at once. It sneaks in little by little. It settles in when you let your guard down, when you think it's not that big of a deal, when you think you can control it later. But the impulse doesn't wait. If you give it ground today, tomorrow it will want more. Because that's what misdirected desire does. It consumes. It wants everything: your energy, your focus, your peace. You have to start being brutally honest with yourself. Stop thinking you can flirt with your weaknesses without paying a price. Because there is a price. What today seems harmless, tomorrow is a habit. And habits, once established, don't go away easily. They shape you. They change you. They make you believe you are weak, when in reality, you are just feeding the wrong part of you. The solution is not magical. It's practical. It's cutting off the food. It's stopping giving it space. It's making small decisions that weaken the enemy instead of strengthening it. Do you know what feeds the impulse? Exposure, constant availability, disorder. If you want to start winning this battle, you have to close the doors, cut off access, clean up your environment, protect your mind. It's not about living in paranoia. It's about living with intention, about stopping adding sugar to the poison. Because that's what we do many times. We justify what we know destroys us. It's okay. It's just for a while. I'll get serious later. I deserve it today. And so, we feed what will crush us tomorrow. The enemy weakens with every conscious decision. Every time you choose not to give in, you make it smaller. Every time you choose to focus, you push it away. But it's not enough to resist occasionally. You have to build a life that doesn't need it. Because when your day is full of meaning, when you have direction, you don't need to escape. Desire loses power when there is purpose. And if one day you fall, if you slip, if you feed it again unintentionally, don't stay on the ground. Don't punish yourself forever. Learn, observe, and get up with more awareness. The important thing is not to fall. It's not to stay there. Because every time you get up with more clarity, the enemy loses something it can't recover: your respect. Always remember this. What you feed grows. What you ignore dies. And you choose which of the two sides you are giving strength to. Lust doesn't need you to actively seek it. It's enough not to set limits. It's enough not to take control. But if you decide to face it, if you decide to cut off its sources, if you decide to live with structure, then little by little, you regain power. This battle is won in the invisible, in what you do when no one sees you, in the moments where you could give in and you don't, where you could get distracted and you choose to focus, where you could feed the enemy and you decide to starve it. Because you don't need to be perfect. You just need to stop being its accomplice. 7. Willpower is trained like a muscle. Many people hope to have willpower as if it was something that appears out of nowhere. As if one day you simply wake up with more discipline, more control, more grit. But it doesn't work that way. Willpower is not an inspiration. It's a muscle. And like any muscle, if you don't train it, it atrophies. If you don't use it, it weakens. And if you abandon it, it abandons you. You can't expect to have control over your impulses if you feed them every day without resistance. You can't expect to say no when it really matters if you never practice doing so in your everyday life. Willpower is strengthened in the details. In that moment where you want to stay in bed, but you get up. In that instant where you could give in to a distraction, and you choose to stand firm. In those seconds where temptation knocks on the door and you decide not to open. You don't need grand gestures. You need consistency, repetitions. Just like in physical training, you don't lift 100 kilos on the first day. You start with little, but you do it every day. The same goes for your willpower. Every time you choose to resist in the small things, you prepare to resist in the big things. Every act counts. Every decision adds up. Because character is not built in extreme moments. It is forged in the everyday. And here's the uncomfortable part. At first, it hurts. It feels like your body and your mind are at war. Because they are. Your comfort zone is going to scream. Your impulse will look for 1,000 excuses, and everything in you will cry out for relief. But if you endure that moment, if you go through it without giving in, something changes. You become stronger. You become more aware. And above all, you prove to yourself that you can. That's the key, proving to yourself. Because real confidence doesn't come from thinking positively, but from acting firmly. It doesn't come from motivating yourself with phrases, but from accumulating internal evidence that you have control. And that is only achieved by training willpower like any other muscle, with intention, with repetition, and with well-used pain. So stop waiting to feel like acting. Stop waiting for the perfect moment. Start today with what you have, in whatever you can. And every time you doubt, remember, this is not just a moment of temptation. It's a moment of training. And while others give in without a fight, you are forging a willpower that doesn't break. 8. Without sacrifice, there is no greatness. We want results. We want respect, focus, inner power, clarity, purpose. Everyone wants it. But very few are willing to pay the price. And that's the brutal difference between those who merely desire and those who truly build. Because greatness is not free. It never has been. Always, without exception. It demands sacrifice. And I'm not talking about symbolic sacrifices. I'm talking about the real ones, about giving up easy pleasure, about closing doors that tempt you, about choosing discomfort when your body begs for rest, about looking desire in the eyes and saying no, even though you feel it burning inside you. That's sacrifice. And yes, it hurts. That's why so few people do it. But don't confuse pain with loss. What you let go of today is not more valuable than what you are going to gain. Because every well-made sacrifice is an investment. You are trading momentary satisfaction for inner power. You are giving up weakness in exchange for strength. You are letting go of chains that hold you back. People believe that to sacrifice something is to lose it forever. But what you're really doing is making room for what's worth it. You can't have it all. You can't live chasing pleasure and at the same time expect to build discipline, focus, and greatness. You have to choose. There is no double path. There are no shortcuts. Either you feed your purpose or you feed your distraction. And when I talk about greatness, I'm not referring to fame, money, or recognition. I'm talking about that inner state where you know you're fulfilling what you came to do, where you live with direction, with strength, with clarity. This cannot be achieved without paying a price. You have to leave something behind. You have to sacrifice old versions of you, habits that no longer serve, pleasures that weaken you. Every act of conscious sacrifice is a statement. You're saying, my goal is more important than this impulse. And that changes everything. Because you stop being someone who reacts and become someone who decides. Someone who doesn't live at the rhythm of desire, but at the rhythm of purpose. There is no greatness without discomfort, without difficult nights, without moments when you feel alone, exhausted, misunderstood. But you keep going, because you know that all that pain makes sense, that all that sacrifice is building something that not everyone can have. Self-respect, a life that weighs, a mind that doesn't break. So, engrave it well. If you want an extraordinary life, you're going to have to make sacrifices that most are not willing to make. And if you're not ready for that, that's okay. But then don't complain when you live trapped in the ordinary, in the easy, in what leaves no mark. Sacrifice is the door, and on the other side is your true strength.
Thank you for staying until the end of the video. If you watched the whole thing, comment, "I am Stoic," as our secret signal to know that you're a true student of Stoicism. Don't forget to subscribe and give the video a like if you enjoyed it. See you in the next video, and remember, keep cultivating your Stoic mind.